Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the committee for holding this hearing on my legislation, H.R. 5283, Protecting Our Communities from Failure to Secure the Border Act. And I would like to thank this committee staff for working with my office in the drafting of this bill. The administration's failure to secure the border has resulted in an unprecedented number of individuals flooding into our country and ultimately finding their way to some of our most northern communities. New York City Mayor Eric Adams wrongfully insists that a 1982 right to shelter decree, court decree, requires taxpayers to house an unlimited number of citizens from outside of New York and the nation. He has since taken over schools, parks, and assisted living facilities meant for our seniors. As of the beginning of this month, New York City has taken on the burden of 118,000 migrants and currently housing upwards of 64,000 individuals at a tremendous expense and burden on the taxpayer. So much so that Mayor Adams said that it will, quote, destroy, unquote, New York City, and proposed a 15% across-the-board cut of city services. Instead of closing the border, this administration has agreed to turn over our national park into a migrant encampment to accommodate 2,500 migrants at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, which is part of the Gateway National Recreation Area. This is lands under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service. Doing so without going through the proper NEPA process, the Department of Interior is beholden to. I want to thank Chairman Bruce Westerman for coming to Floyd Bennett Field last month and seeing firsthand the issue, and then subsequently holding a hearing on this. The week following this committee's hearing on the issue, heavy rains flooded Floyd Bennett Field as much as 10 inches, proving the point that this is in no way the appropriate place to house anyone. Created by an act of Congress in 1972, 5 months before our friend, the late Don Young of Alaska, joined this institution, Gateway National Recreation Area was one of the first urban parks in the national park system. I must also point out that its creation, Congress prohibited the construction of a housing development at Floyd Bennett Field. Gateway National Recreation Area may not be to the scale of our more well-known parks out west, but it is one of our urban treasures in New York City. The portion of Gateway National Recreation Area in my district contains Fort Wadsworth, which is one of the nation's oldest military installations, and it currently serves as a domicile and an operational base for members of the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Park Police, who are tasked with patrolling not only the parklands, but also New York Harbor from potential national security threats. That park was also being proposed as a potential site to house migrants from other countries. The portion of Gateway National, this is why my legislation, H.R. 5283, is so important and straightforward. This legislation prohibits the use of federal funds to provide housing to migrants on any land under the administrative jurisdiction of the federal land management agencies, specifically naming the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the U.S. Forest Service. This legislation protects our lands nationwide, not just those in New York City. And before I close, I must remind my colleagues here of the mission of the National Park Service. The National Park Service preserves, unimpaired, the natural and cultural resources and values of the national park system for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations. The National Park Service cooperates with partners to extend the benefits of natural and cultural resource conservation and outdoor recreation throughout this country and the world. Taxpayers of New York City and the United States of America preserve these lands for their public use, for their recreational activities and enjoyment. And I thank you for your time and consideration of my legislation. I look forward to it moving through the committee process. Thank you.